Okay, it is 4:30. I'm going to call this meeting of Dunn County's Judiciary and Law Committee to order. Call the roll. Supervisor Vandermeulen. Supervisor Wilsey. Supervisor Gilbert.
Yes, sir.
And Supervisor Bauer is excused. First item is approval of the minutes from the January 23rd meeting. Can I get a motion for that? Supervisor Vandermeulen.
Second.
Supervisor Wilsey. Any comments or changes to it? All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. There are no public comments, and now we will move on to the staff reports. I see Sarah Benedict is on Zoom for the Criminal Justice Collaboration Committee. Anybody have a chance to look over the report? Any questions for Sarah? Anything else you'd like to add, Sarah?
Nothing further to add, no.
I have a question. I was curious what you note the Project Hope Quick Response Team piloted 2 deployments in January. What is that?
So the QRT team, the quick response team, is adult deflection. So there's a team of behavioral health officers and a social worker and treatment representative, and they're going out and doing some intervention with those that are at risk of overdose or have had an overdose. So that was the pilot kind of run where they had a number of individuals scheduled, and they did some house visits, knocked on doors, let people know what they're doing, and really can make the connections with treatment. So this is something that is newer and just really kicked off formally earlier this month in February. The idea is really to help those that are most at risk at overdose to get them connected with treatment, and by law enforcement with a multidisciplinary team. Other communities found it to be very effective in making those connections because there's a kind of a different response when the government's there to help. So that was what got kicked off. I think they'll be doing planned deployments in the future. So at least once a month, they'll go out with their short list of individuals that they want to make contact with and try to make those connections to treatment.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Sarah? Sarah, I have a question about the in the pending legislation section. There is a amendment to the Constitution of, I guess, the Wisconsin Constitution about bail, and you said you're going to be making a video about that. And where will that be available?
So we will be planning the structure of that video at our Wednesday meeting of the CJCC Executive and Operations Committee. But we're really honing in on 5 minutes of education that's really kind of not opinion based, not political based, but just some information for voters to have a better understanding of what this amendment is really asking and the changes that would come if it was approved. We haven't quite discussed how that would be made available, but we would be connecting with IT. I assume we would be putting it on our website, pushing it out across the county, and just really trying to make it available for folks to take a look at it if they're interested.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is a district attorney report. Anything to add, Andrea?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the district attorney? Supervisor Wilsey.
Can you give us an update on the shooting as far as any updates on it?
Yep, I just received the reports last Thursday. So today I started my review of about halfway through the reports and was halfway through the digital hard drive. It's like, it's a lot. It's like a whole nother homicide case, I feel like. So making my way through it, but I hope, in the next, week or two to get that done.
Okay, thank you. Next up is child support. Anything to add, Josie?
Thank you. I did speak with Beata, the CFO, and my budget review I had unofficial because I wasn't sure if that's how my numbers were gonna play out. I believe all my expenses are now in, but I was just notified that I'm getting a reimbursement of $45 either tomorrow or March 1st. So that's roughly how my numbers will be for the end of the year, though. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Next up is emergency management. And looks like Melissa is not here today.
Yeah, she's on vacation
Okay.
right now.
Great. So we'll move on to medical examiner, who's also busy today. And I'm sure if there's any questions for them, you can send them via email. And next up is the sheriff's office. Anything to add to your report, Sheriff?
Oh, it seems like it's been a busy week since I submitted my written report. You're probably all aware of the double fatality house fire yesterday morning. I sent an email with an update to that news release and releasing the names. Nothing suspicious about that at this point. We believe it's still under investigation, but believe we've determined the cause of the fire and there's nothing suspicious about it. So one additional thing for an update is we had to terminate another probationary employee last week. Let's just say he did not meet our professional standards for the agency. And so we're back to another opening on our patrol staff, which we're at 5 now, vacancies that we need to fill. In a hiring process right now, I think we had 23 applicants. So I'm hopeful we can get at least 3, maybe even 4 good qualified applicants out of it. But we've kind of seen the results of being flexible on our standards a little bit. Then we end up putting somebody through 6 months of training and to only find out that what we maybe suspected from the get-go, it was what happened. So I think we have to keep our bar high and hire at a very high standard and continue that expectation throughout their career. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else to add.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions? Go ahead.
Sheriff, I got to tour the jail the other day. Thank you for
yes.
that opportunity. So I sat from 3 to 6:30.
Yep.
And I didn't know what to expect, but I was actually shocked. Like I think I'd be kind of depressed working in an environment like that. But those guys were all like super nice and like answered all my questions. Everyone come up and said hi to me, and so I was very impressed by that. And
Good.
question I had is a lot of the guys said there's need for a mental health facility. They sometimes they said they refer to it as the Dunn County Insane Asylum, not the jail. I did get a tour of the neighbors too. There's 2 wings open. I mean, is that something that could ever be converted, or is there a special building you would need for mental health?
No, it certainly could be converted if the county wanted to get in the business of, running a mental health facility. It's in very high need and demand. Anytime that we take somebody into custody on an emergency detention, usually we're going to Winnebago with them. So there's some legislation going on right now. Last session, they passed a $10 million budget to assist with the mental health facilities, a regional mental health facility, which you know, if you're going brick and mortars, $10 million isn't gonna scratch the surface to build a facility, a state facility. So Sacred Heart in Eau Claire looked at taking that project on and adding some beds and adding some staff. Which sounds like in the last couple of weeks, they've withdrawn from an interest in that. But it's statewide. All 72 sheriffs are dealing with it. They're, you know, the Bayfield County Sheriff's his deputies have to drive from Bayfield to Oshkosh to go to Winnebago to drop somebody off. I mean, they're almost having to put a deputy up in a hotel there, so they're not driving, you know, or not putting in a 24-hour day by the time they turn around and go back. But yeah, it's no secret that, you know, I'm running the largest mental health facility in Dunn County is our jail. And probably 75% of the people in custody can be, you know, labeled with some mental health concerns. We do what we can. We have a contract for mental health services in the jail. We have a guy currently that comes in that, you know, for a few hours a day, but you know, we're not necessarily in the business of, you know, long-term treatment. We're trying to get them through a short-term, you know, please don't hang yourself in my facility type of thing. You know, it's but obviously there's a very high need for mental health services and local mental health services. It's rare that we can get into Mayo Eau Claire that has a mental health wing. You know, it used to be 10 years ago, we take somebody into custody on a Chapter 51 emergency detention. We'd drive to Eau Claire and drop them off and be back in the county in a half hour. That doesn't happen anymore. There's a lot of red tape involved. Northwest Connections has to approve any facility now or any chapter. It gets, personally, I think there's a game that gets played between facilities. We have to take them for a medical release. And now say that patient doesn't want to voluntarily submit to their medical testing. Well, now we're stuck, you know, what do we do? But Winnebago will want a list of mental screening checkoffs, and or any facility will, well, that facility will fall through. So then you got to go to Winnebago. Winnebago wants a different set of medical checkoffs, and it's a never ending battle. But there's a very strong need for more services in our area.
Officer Doug, I can't remember his last name, sorry.
Ormson?
Yeah.
Right, jail captain, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. He was, maybe I misheard him, but can you make money off a mental health facility, or is there not money to be?
Well, in theory, you probably could, but that's why hospitals are getting out of the business, is because they claim they're losing money at it. You know, somebody that works in human services could probably tell you what the bills are anytime we take somebody on a mental health commitment to a facility, and Dunn County's hooked with the bill on it because they don't have any health insurance that covers it or something like that. But it's, what I understand, it's somewhere around $6,000, you know, just for a 24-hour stay in a mental health facility. And a lot of times we have to absorb that cost as a county. So
when I was in with Officer Jed, there was a guy that kept ringing the button for him. And he's like, that guy has some issues, and
right,
we're a babysitter for him.
Yep.
A couple other things I was going to ask you. Well, and one other thing they were saying, like medical, so there's 83 inmates right now, and 80 of them get pills they got to do morning and night. So that's
Med pass every morning and every night.
Yeah. One other thing, and maybe the DA can speak for this, or judge. A couple of the officers mentioned that they didn't like that bail was 5,000 on some of these sexual child predators. Like one that just got released. I don't know who they were talking about. Is that who sets bail, or how does that work?
Well, a judge ultimately sets the bail. And that's, yeah, if Judge Peterson was here, he'd love to have a microphone and get into an hour discussion about it, but ultimately a judge sets the bail. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
The standard is, in what you need to hold them to get them to come back. So the standard is, to assure that they're gonna appear at the next hearing. And so you can consider, this jail appearance, this, appearances in court for previous cases. You can consider some of those things that they've done in the past, but really you're not supposed to be keeping them in jail for the protection of the public. And I think that, when we're talking about, the bail amendments, certainly Judge Peterson, it would be the person that would talk about this for quite some time. And, that's part of why they want to do the amendment, is because that would then give judges greater latitude in setting a bail that is higher based upon the crime committed. Arguably, if they're charged with with murder, right, they'd have a stronger chance to flee, and so you can set the bail higher because they have a stronger chance to flee based upon the charges and based upon what they're facing down the road.
Thank you.
It's not for the public safety that we put in jail. Why are they there?
To assure that they return to court when they're ordered to.
And that ties into the constitutional amendment that's coming up. What that would do would, if the state changed the constitution, judges would be allowed to consider a threat to the community as part of bail. Right now, legally, they can't do that.
And one last question I had from a tour. They were saying contraband is getting really bad, especially the last couple of years. Any reason why the last couple of years?
Not necessarily. We've taken steps to try and we've put a body scanner in, which is $85,000 to try and get that. It's more the drugs that might go in places on your body that can be confused with bowel, for example, that can be easily snuck into the facility, even not detected by a body scanner.
They had some fun terms for them.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily on the rise or if it's we're catching more, but yeah, it's always a concern with contraband in anything from. And everybody that's on work release comes back to jail, strip searched, but we can't strip search incoming inmates off the street legally. We have to have a significant reason to believe that they have something hidden on their body or in their body to do a strip search. So, and those are, constitutional protections that people have that we have to be very cautious about. And so, yeah, there's certainly, stuff that gets in, but our staff does a pretty incredible job of sifting through some of that stuff and catching them.
It was fascinating, all the inner workings and how busy it actually is. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. And I appreciate you coming in and seeing what they do, because honestly, being a patrol deputy is one thing, and I've been there, done that. I've every position in the sheriff's office now. I worked in the jail and dispatch for 5 years, went to patrol, and it takes a special person to work in a jail facility. They are dealing with the worst of the community and don't get a break to go talk to the little old lady that had her mailbox smashed last night. So they're a special person to be able to work in that facility for many years.
One other thing, Officer Doug challenged us. He said maybe you should come down and try the food. He said the old judicial committees would go down there every so often and try it.
Yep.
I didn't know if I really want to do that.
I opt for Quick Trip if I'm desperate for something to eat, but I don't order a meal from the jail, but, and they're nothing special. Obviously, we have a food service contract that, costs us a lot of money to feed our inmates. But they're trying to cut corners and do it as cheap as they can possibly do it too, but, we meet our statutory obligation and
You like the food service contract? Is it cheaper for the county or is it more?
yeah, ultimately, I wasn't involved years ago when they made a decision, we obviously in our old facility, the jail staff used to cook. We'd have to hire, multiple staff, weekends, nights, weekends and holidays to keep somebody in there in the kitchen. So I prefer to have somebody outsource, this contract. They have to worry about staffing our kitchen and ordering all the food and doing that stuff. But it's certainly something we could look at in the future if, I don't know how many staff we'd have to hire. Is extra headache for everybody involved, trying to make sure that the kitchen's staffed and we have, the groceries needed to cook the food, and they're experts in it. Summit Foods is our jail food provider, and they do probably over 50% of the jails just in Wisconsin, many in Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, Illinois, Iowa. So it's what they do for a profession, and I'm pretty certain they do it better than we can.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Supervisor Wilsey. Interesting stuff. If any of the rest of us would like a similar tour, how would we go about that?
Shoot me an email. I'll connect you with my jail captain, or if you want a patrol ride along, I'll connect you with one of our sergeants or my patrol captain and get you scheduled.
Nice. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
Next up is the courts. Katie, anything else to add to your report?
I do not know.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the clerk of courts? All right. Well, looking over the rest, that pretty much exhausts our agenda and down to the announcements. Are there any announcements from anybody? Nothing to announce. All right. Next meeting is March 27th at 4:30 p.m. and we are adjourned.
Thanks. Bye-bye.